And I would walk around with this cane, and I did not realize it is a dried, petrified bison penis cane. Yes.
What did you think it was? Were you like,
a cool old wood cane? Like, they're just random.
You're just
like,
carrying a huge dick over your head?
Yes, and I'm like 10 years old.
Welcome to TMI Wellness Talk, your favorite slightly inappropriate wellness discussion platform, where we take a shameless approach on talking about what really happens behind closed doors. You'll learn what's normal, what's not, and get the expert's touch of knowledge on all of our dirty little secrets.
Welcome to TMI Wellness Talk. I am your host, James Timmons, and joining me as always, my lovely co-host, Lisa Reed.
Hi.
Lisa, how are you this week?
Well, my dog went missing yesterday because she's
right.
an escape artist, asshole.
Yeah, and
the whole podcast team showed up to my house to help me find her. Like, stop.
and then we had like a little powwow after, and we talked about today's show. But before, we played Fortnite, we played ping pong.
I lost both times.
We get to sit down with a very interesting guest, Keilani Perisian-Mason. And we're gonna dive into codependency and healthy relationships. Keilani is a licensed mental health counselor, or LMHC, who specializes in anxiety, relationship issues, and coping skills. So, Keilani, welcome.
Hello.
We're super excited to have you on.
Yeah.
So, I see that you grew up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Midwest.
Minnesota.
Oofta.
Do you say ope?
No,
Okay.
but my husband will say that when I first moved to Washington, the accent was still there. He's very grateful it's left. It's not a sexy accent.
Neither is Texas.
It's fun,
we can't
though.
help it.
It's fun. Like like if I have an adult beverage, it'll probably start coming out and be like,
Don't you know?
Oh, for funny. Oh, for silly. Don't you know? Oofta. Oh, for sure.
I love
Yeah.
So you grew up on a bison farm.
I did. Yes. My parents made sure I had a very interesting childhood.
Yeah.
I grew up, did 15 years time in northern Minnesota, and we had a bison farm. At one point, we had llamas, donkeys, horses, bison, peacocks.
Wow.
Like third grade field trip to my house. It was just,
Aww.
it was a colorful childhood.
You were the cool kid.
No.
You're like, I don't want everybody to come over.
No,
And they're like, you have to.
I was the weird kid with the funny farm and like the only Asian for miles to see. So it definitely did not feel like the cool kid, but it makes for interesting conversation
Definitely.
as an adult.
Yeah.
But you were the cool kid.
So
for sure.
So you know the difference between a bison and a buffalo.
Oh, we had this
right?
conversation yesterday.
So they're interchangeably said in the United States.
Yeah.
If we're being technical, we'd probably say a buffalo is a water buffalo.
Yeah.
And a bison is more like North American bison.
Mhm.
However, like
They have the same bones.
But however,
they're the
I think
same creature.
they're you can refer to them interchangeably.
Most people.
Oh, we had a fight about this. Why don't you just say you lost?
Well, no,
Oh.
I was
You
technically,
lost.
I was correct because I said a
He's
bison.
like, they're completely different.
There
I'm
are
like,
no
no, they're
there
not.
are no buffalo in North America. They're all what we think of buffalo are bisons, right? Bison.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm maybe not being technically correct. The National Bison Association might come after me. Which, okay, I actually have a funny story about that. So we would like go to these conferences, like the Minnesota Bison Association, and like it's laughable now, but I was always super excited because there was always like a water park,
Yeah.
other kids to play with, and there'd be a silent auction. So my job at these events was always to be like the girl who's like showing the whatever thing,
The
like
bison,
the Vanna
like-
White, the bat, and so there was
I
always
love
this like
it.
old
That's so
cane
cute.
in these, and I would walk around with this cane, and I did not realize because it was always one at everyone. It is a dried, petrified bison penis cane. Yes.
What did you think it was?
Just like,
Were you like,
I just
oh, it's
thought,
my...
a cool old wood cane. Like, they're just random.
You're just
like,
carrying a huge
I'm
dick
just-
over your
yes,
head?
and I'm like 10 years old, and I'm like, any
Whoa.
bits?
And then who decided that the best person to carry this is a 10-year-old Girl Scout?
Exactly.
Like, what?
I would like to know.
Yeah,
Because
that's
So what really got you into wanting to be a counselor?
I have always been a real like observer of people. Like, why do we do the things we do? Why? How do we process the things that are going on? And I've really been curious about that. I've loved having like vulnerable conversations with people. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's I love that. And
Connecting.
yes, I love connecting and just being real.
Yeah.
So it didn't take me long to realize that that was the path that I wanted to go down. And I was lucky to find an undergraduate program where the focus was community counseling versus psychology, which is different. Like psychology is studies that have been done about people, it's more about the study of or parts
What
of
to
the brain.
expect because of.
And counseling is about like how can we help someone, and what skills, like what observable skills can be practiced and taught, and how do we progress someone through to their goals. So I got to have a lot of hands-on experience, which was great.
Yeah.
I love that you use the word observe, because like one thing that I've observed is I had my own mental health journey just recently, and I noticed that mental health, mental wellness is living in reality without wanting to escape it. And so like I had to like observe objectively the things that I was like, struggling with. And then it really helped me to be honest with myself and like be compassionate with myself and stuff. And then just, observe just kind of what was happening. And so
to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And to be able to move past things that you've grown out of, and to know that that's not who you are anymore, and to accept that you can't change the past, but to also, really get people to treat you like who you are today, not who you were yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. I think especially probably the generation that we're a part of, our parents really struggled with that. Like, I'm still trying to
cry.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that, and especially for boys. Like, if
boys
we talk about the
cry.
differences between how little girls and little boys are raised, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
But our parents, or at least in my case, I'll speak for myself, it was very much just suck it up, get over it. That isn't what's going on. Anxiety and depression are not words that we use or we understand.
If you had ever lived through our lives, you would understand it was so much harder.
And so it's a real, and I think it masked a lot of generational trauma when we ignore it. So, and I could see the ways that like my family or the people around me weren't living in a healthy way if they weren't processing through that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't tell someone who broke a leg, just walk it off. We wouldn't tell someone who's a diabetic, like, you power through, you don't need that insulin.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a really powerful place
true.
to be able to say, like, mental health is a part of total wellness. Let's look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the beginning of your day. It's the end of your day. It's your brain. It's your life. It follows you through your dreams. It's a part of you no matter what you do. And it's so important to make sure you understand.
For sure. Yeah. You said the word generational trauma.
Yeah.
And that's super interesting. Tell us what generational trauma is, please.
Yeah. Generational trauma is passed down from family member to family member. And it might be that it could be that unhealthy relationship patterns, if that's all that I've seen, if the only thing that I've observed are unhealthy relationships, that's my emotional blueprint for what I now think is normal.
Yeah.
And so we could easily find ourselves in unhealthy relationships without realizing it because it feels comfortable.
That's
it feels
where you want to live.
Yes, we gravitate
what
towards
you know.
what feels comfortable because we know it. Even though maybe the most respectable, wonderful partner could walk right in front of us, we would not gravitate towards that because we have this emotional blueprint. And so I see that as a piece of generational trauma. But there's also studies on, really interesting studies, specifically on people who have descendants of the Holocaust and how it has altered the DNA. And I think that makes so much sense when we think about it. Like we think about animals when there's something, a hardship in their environment.
The reason
their
they know
DNA
to
is
run when they
altered,
run.
Right? Yeah. And so the same is true of humans with our amygdala and our limbic system. That's our fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And so we can easily become more prone to anxiety or depression if there are intense traumatic events.
Yeah.
Or extended events of abuse versus like a Holocaust situation. So again, like I applied some of this thinking that really clicked for me personally when I thought about my family. I'm fourth generation Japanese, and my grandparents were in the internment camps in World War II. And so this was a traumatic event that shaped my family, and like helping other people understand generational trauma and heal from it, because at some point in a generation we have to say it's going to stop with me. I'm not going to fuck up my kids
You
the
have
way
to
that
be
I
the
was
person to
affected.
do it.
Yeah.
And to acknowledge it and to see it, right?
Yes.
And
Because
that's
if
so
you
hard, though.
don't, Well, I mean, is it hard though? Like, because if you make the same mistakes over and over again, just because like in choosing the wrong guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like, I always the people that I date hurt me,
Mm-hmm.
but I choose them because that's what I'm used to.
Yes.
That's what I'm used to feeling. So with them, I feel comfort because that's how I am used to feeling. It doesn't make it right.
It's
just
the devil
something
you
I
know,
need to
that
stop.
saying,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm familiar with it. And so, but it is like,
It's like a blanket.
I think it is hard to break away from because A, it feels really normal. Exactly. There's something comforting even in how fucked up it is.
Right.
Right. And then there are, like in my case, and I think and for a lot of people, sometimes means saying goodbye to people you really love and care about. Like there are family members who I love and I care about them. But I've learned that I have to love and care about you from a distance because your behavior doesn't make me a better person. It doesn't make my family better.
Teaching people how to treat you, right?
Yeah.
So you have to teach people how to treat you.
Hard. That's hard, especially in family systems where they're
And
like,
it's
family is
sad.
everything, or the sense of like, I
Well, it
need
doesn't matter.
you.
It's your mom. You gotta love her.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. That no matter what,
But still, she's hurting me, and nobody cares. So she's still my mom. So it doesn't matter.
And I feel like that's where personality disorders can like really bloom, is when you're like you're like obligated to have a relationship with a person who is like sort of destructive.
Yeah.
So like it's like, well, okay, I'm so used to this like, abusive behavior, and I have to, but I'm kind of stuck with you. So, but yeah, like observing my own personal experience, like the places that I was like, I had a human need that was neglected, that I sort of carried that into my adulthood, and then I didn't even realize that it was missing until
You got it.
It's fallen into my lap, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this huge human need.
This makes me feel so happy and so wanted and so good.
And then I'm vulnerable there, So I feel like that's where we can carry that generational trauma.
Yes.
Like in my worldview, it was called generational sin. So like it's just like, yeah, what is normalized and we're desensitized to it, we just kind of carry it without even knowing. You know?
Desensitized. That's a great word to describe the situation. I mean, like, I've to some clients, I've explained it as if you put a lobster in boiling water, they're going to scream. They're going to freak out. But if you put them in cold water and the boil, they don't notice. And that's what
what it is.
Right? Like unhealthy relationships is a great example of how that can start, because it's not like they don't start out with the guy being like, I'm planning on being a really big dick and an asshole.
No, but you see
really
these red flags that actually entice you. You're like, ooh, he didn't call me back yesterday. I haven't talked to him in 3 days. I want him.
And that's now I'm gonna dive in here,
And
because there's like, this is where like codependency can breed, because there's a need to control someone instead of realizing, oh, you're putting me in an awkward position, or like you're not standing up for your boundaries. Instead, there's a need to control the other person, or that I need to overgive, fix them. Exactly. These are all like things to pay attention to. So when I love providing this education and just inviting this kind of conversation, because when we can start to become more aware of those things, or if anything that we're saying right now feels like a ding, ding, ding to someone, hopefully there's more awareness there to catch yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this. This is the whole point of this whole podcast. It's to bring awareness to people about events that are happening in their life, things that are happening in their life right in front of them that they don't really want to ever tell anybody. They don't want to tell anybody, I'm attracted to pieces of shit that are going to hurt my feelings. Like, who wants to be like, oh, so like, we were talking about something else yesterday too, but like, or getting back with somebody that cheated on you. Like, so where does it go from between, hey, this is just who I like, and also where does it end where, hey, this is somebody that I really love, and I'm proving to them that I love them, and I'm gonna forgive them. So like, where does, like, how do you get that happy medium, and when are you the person just getting screwed, and when is the other person just taking advantage of you?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know?
Great questions. I think a good question that I had to ask myself is, am I compromising my needs for the sake of this other person?
Yeah.
Am I giving to the degree that I'm no longer valuing my worth and I'm giving while someone else is taking consistently.
Yeah.
And how do you know that deep yearning, burning pain that you have when you get your heart broke is wrong or right? Like, is it because you miss them and it's going to be right? Or is it because
you won't know?
That's all
that's
you
the
know.
Thing that's the other tricky thing is you won't know. It's going to
Yeah.
feel the same. And I think that's what sucks a lot of people back into unhealthy relationships because they feel like the pain is so unbearable of not having this person. But if you need someone's
and then having
reassurance,
them back is so fulfilling. And
well, it's a
happy.
roller coaster, right?
Even if
you're chasing that
if they
high.
hurt you.
Yeah, you're chasing that high. And that's why someone who might walk into your life who's stable and doesn't cause those fluctuations.
Bored by.
Yeah. Because
he's just annoying. He gets my nerves. He likes me too much. Like, it's
exactly.
boring.
And
He makes
I
me
used to
dinner all the
feel
time.
that way too. And I did the same thing. Like, I feel so bad now. Like, men of my like youth that I just like brushed aside.
Everyone's
or
gonna be
I
like
saw.
me.
And I can now see a real pattern that arose of like choosing unhealthy people because I thought I could fix them.
Yeah.
Well, and because it was also what you're used to feeling. So for me, my whole life, I went through trauma in my childhood, and then once I got to adulthood and I started meeting people, like when I was old enough to like want to be a part of, a relationship, I chose people that weren't available. And I've never dated a married man or anything like that, but just people that
like emotionally
were
unavailable.
Yes. And then I wanted them because so was I. And so I felt like if I could fix them, then maybe it would fix me. But it never worked.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they loved me, I didn't want them anymore.
Well, the thing I discovered is that like, if you don't love somebody where they're at,
Yes.
you're probably not going to be successful in fixing them. And they're probably like the stuff that they bring into the relationship is always going to be there.
I think you should never get in a relationship to fix someone. Right?
Exactly.
No.
Unless you do what you do. That's what.
Well, even
that's
then.
your job. That's
No,
your job.
I guess that's why I am not a perfect person. And I'm someone who's grown up with generational trauma and seeing unhealthy relationships and involving myself in unhealthy relationships. But I think I want to be transparent, not only with my clients, but with people that like, yes. And then you do the work and you get better.
Yeah.
And then you do the work and you
but
go
being
through
with a
hard
counselor like you that
realizations.
tells the truth and says, hey, I've been through it too. Like someone you can connect with on a different level, like that. They're like, girl, I know, like I did that too.
Well, there's a lot of
he is really cute. Yeah, I get it. Like
there's
different.
a lot of like mixed feelings on how much a counselor should self divulge, and so I do it on a very like. It's something I'm going to share therapeutically going to be important because no one wants to sit with a counselor while they're bitching about their own life.
Yeah.
Right? No one wants to pay money for that. But do you have something of value to share that ties in your experience and says like, yeah, I've been there. It is going to be hard.
And then make
Healing
you
is
trust
not
them, like to trust them to understand where you're coming from. Like I've actually been there and like this actually happened to me. I would love hearing that story and be like, so you know? You do know? So I'm not crazy.
Yeah, you're
Like,
not alone.
Yeah, and I think that's important. So connecting with your counselor is huge.
Yeah.
Like if your counselor understands your lifestyle and is around, I mean, I don't even know if this is true, but around your age and around your, like what you're used to and what the world is around you, like that can, I mean, for me, if I went to some old lady, she'd be like, well, you just need to love each other. Love thy neighbor. And I'd be like, beat it, Betty. Like, come on. Like, it's not helping me. So, but if somebody can be like, what you're doing is this because of this, stop. Like, you have to change this behavior. And the reason you're doing this is because of this. And like putting a finger on it, because the hardest thing for me that I've ever had to try to figure out is why I do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think when you're looking for a good counselor, it's a combination of, do I feel comfortable with this person?
Yeah.
And will I allow them to challenge me? Because I'm going to call you out on stuff. I'm going to say, ooh, that doesn't feel in line with the goals that you told me you want to work towards.
Totally.
And why is that? Let's look at that.
Which makes sense. Like flowers don't grow without rain and without sunshine. So you got to have both. to grow. You got to
Yeah.
have rain and you got to have sunshine. Like,
And it's why we avoid it at all costs, because we know it's going to be a painful process.
because
Yeah.
it
Because it's
hurts.
scary and daunting and unknown.
And it feels like that little
Yeah.
thing in your stomach right here where it like hits and you just lose your breath. That feeling of pain is so deep
Mhm.
that it doesn't go away easily, and it affects your whole life. So in order to feel that, you have to mentally prepare yourself. And if you're not mentally prepared, then it can affect you in all different ways by having issues with codependencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think we should be gentle with ourselves and have self-compassion, like you were saying, and at the same time it is you have to also keep challenging yourself. There was a mental health comic that I really liked, and it showed this girl and her brain was representing her trauma or unhealthy patterns, and they were at a crossroads. And on one path was just like, it was a very well-paved, well-worn path, and it said unhealthy relationships.
Easy road.
Oh,
All
well
downhill,
paved. I've
whole
done
way.
it. I've done it before. I'm familiar with this path. And on the other path, it went straight into a jungle. And the brain
Oh.
said, well, I forgot my machete. Let's take this road. Your brain and your trauma is going to try and find any excuse to keep going down this unhealthy pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's scary and unknown and daunting to look at a jungle and say, ooh, let's take some steps down that road. So having a counselor,
Because at
especially,
least you know that guy.
yeah, at least I
The other
know
one.
this
This is
unhealthy
what he's gonna
dynamic.
do.
It's familiar, but to really put yourself in a position to be vulnerable with
vulnerable.
someone, to
To
have
love.
to change yourself, to look at your patterns and fix certain things that you're not doing that are healthy and own that
Yeah.
is scary. And
Yeah.
so having a counselor or a coach that you trust to walk down that path is like, okay, like I have a little bit more of a GPS.
Well, and then you look for it too.
I love that you said the machete in the jungle, because that sort of like gives a nice picture of countering generational trauma, because you're now paving a path that doesn't exist because you're so used to that like safety one. But I mean, if you
But it's not safe. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you're the familiar one. That's a better word.
Yeah.
But
if you don't even know that path exists, then exactly, like
Yeah.
you're going to walk down this well-worn but unhealthy path time and time and time again and see that as normal.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I learned is that is to sort of lean into the uncomfortable, because like, you know, we're all like animals of comfort people, you know,
Yes.
and so it's like you're almost like shocked away from discomfort. So it's like to not to stay away from discomfort, but to lean into it and then just to press forward. And it's like this. You ever seen
It's uncomfortable when you lean into it, though.
I know, but that's the point. You can
Yeah.
become
Why
stronger.
does he love me so much? He's obsessed with me.
Well, have you ever seen Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and like the Spider-Man that comes from the other dimension or whatever, he's like, how will I know, Miles? Well, it's a leap of faith, you know?
It
But
is.
you won't know. I can't tell you if this is going to work. It's a leap of faith. But, you
Yeah.
know, so I mean, that's really like pressing forward into what has been observed and studied. You know, there's a pretty good indicator that we have information where we know what's going to be healthy, you know.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I think has helped is I love John Gottman's work, the Gottman
Yeah.
Institute. Are you familiar?
Yeah, I just actually listened to a podcast, Brene Brown and the Gottmans yesterday.
Oh gosh, I bet that was magic.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So, and he's out of Seattle, but he has been studying relationships and marriage for 40 years.
Yeah.
And I really love the foundation that he's created because there's a couple of really key pieces. There's so much good stuff, but a couple key pieces that you can look for when it comes to unhealthy relationships. Unhealthy relationships, according to the Gottman and the Gottman Institute, will have what he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
So there'll be contempt, criticism, there will be defensiveness, and stonewalling.
Yeah.
So when, again, like the more that we can lean into educating ourselves and start to understand like what is healthy and unhealthy, we have a little bit more of like a bullshit filter installed. We're updating, like I'll also say
It's
to
your
my
bullshit mind filter of what you've already done.
yeah,
And it's like, you shouldn't go hang out with him. He's going to treat you great and be kind to you, and you'll have beautiful babies and be happy the rest of your life. And I'm like, he's crazy. Like, I can't do it. Like, it is weird. Like, I don't want to use words like crazy and stuff like that, because in mental illness, like, there's people use stigmas and things like that, but at the same time, like, you can feel crazy. Like,
I think it's crazy
why am I
making.
doing this
yeah,
again?
like yes. And so the more that we can practice regulating our emotions, looking at our behavior, paying attention to our thoughts, being an observer of our thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that we will have a better understanding of our life. Otherwise, it really feels like we're not in control. And my goal for my clients is always a sense of self-efficacy, that like your hand is on the steering wheel of your life and you can navigate the bumps that are out of your control.
So that's the thing, though. I think there's people that thrive off of not being in control.
Oh,
because
victim mentality.
Then there's no way for you to prevent it
yeah.
happening. So if you just start dating some guy that you know is going to hurt you, it's not your fault, no matter what. But you chose him. So you are in control. But you know he's not going to lead you in the right direction.
Sometimes, for some people, I think you can point that out. And for other people, I've learned, you know what? That's a lesson for you to learn in your own time, when and if you're ready. And me telling you if it were a friend over and over again isn't going to be the magic answer.
You just lose your friend.
Yeah. So sometimes it means, like, again, having healthy boundaries. Like, you know, hearing you constantly put yourself in these positions isn't benefiting. It's not a benefit to our friendship, or seeing you in these unhealthy dynamics. I'm going to have to, like, distance myself. Whether that's something you directly say or not. Yeah. I mean, I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, too, because that's going to influence your behaviors as well. Like, am I going to be around people who have a victim mentality of, like, woe is me all the time? Which, it's a combination for me. Yes, we need to acknowledge what happened, and we need to say, yes, this is where some of these patterns came from. And at the same time say, well, I don't want to be bumped around by every bump in the road. I want to have my hands on the steering wheel. What does that look like? It's
so
both.
Quit choosing the guy that you know is going to do this to you by the red flags that he shows you. Those are what are that you're attracted to. Like, change what you're attracted to. Like, know your worth.
Knowing your worth.
Understand that you're worth not ever having to deal with this ever again. And if that's the only way you can get through life, it's because you're just stuck in a rut. You got to change, nothing will change.
It makes me wonder too, like, what examples of relationships did someone grow up with? What felt normal to them in that sense? Why do you feel a sense or a need to control someone? Why do you feel a sense to put your worth in someone else's hands? These are good questions to ask yourself if that's a dynamic that you're stuck in.
Are you afraid of yourself? Are you afraid of your accomplishments? Do you know that you're smart enough and big enough to do bigger and better things, but you're terrified to do it because if you fail, then you don't have anything left? At least you still have dreams. So just do it, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, complacency can be a really, like, cozy, warm blanket and keep us out of the discomfort. And I think a human condition, I love that you use the words discomfort. Human condition, we want to be comfortable and we want to avoid discomfort. And at the same time, what propels us to be our best self is challenge. But it's working through the challenge. It's not laying down and saying, challenge has taken me over.
That's the scary part.
But it's also, like, coming from an encouraging way, because, like, you can sort of control somebody with, like, behavior modification, and then it's all that's going to do is just make them have more contempt for the person who's controlling them. You know, the word codependency, we've kind of mentioned that a few different times. Can you can you define what codependency is, please?
Yeah, well, I think it's often used in terms of addiction and codependent or enabling behaviors, which is how a lot of the word started, like through oh my gosh, what is it called? The AA group, but it's for Al-Anon. Al-Anon, they'll talk about codependency a lot, and that's kind of where this idea of codependency was birthed. But I see it applying to a lot of relationships, not only through, like, all interpersonal relationships with parents, with significant others, with
bosses,
friends,
coworkers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's this, this intense need to basically, like, put yourself on the back burner and overperform, overhelp, in order for someone else to feel okay.
Literally me.
Yeah.
And leave all of your things.
Like, it has taken such practice, and it is what I am so passionate about now, to help people even assess, what do you need? Like their go-to is automatically to assess and put out the fires for everyone else or to problem solve and fix everyone
That's
else's
exactly what I
problems.
do.
Yeah.
Because they feel like then I will be needed and that will equate my worth or then I'll get praise.
I don't have to deal with my own bullshit.
Yes, it is a great like wall to put up.
It's a getaway.
So that's how I would define codependency, and that can show up in a lot of different ways. But when it comes to relationships, it can be like just interwoven into a lot of unhealthy relationship dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, when I like I mentioned earlier, I went through a personal mental health journey a few months ago, and I went to this facility in Edmonds called the Center, a Place of Hope. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they talked a lot about people pleasing. That's like most, I would say, a large chunk of our population are like perpetual people pleasers.
Yes.
I learned that I was. So then, but then the way to sort of combat that, I discovered, was boundaries. Because people, as a people pleaser, I need you to validate me. That's what I'm dependent on. That's what I'm addicted to. And so if I can do the thing that you like, then you will validate me. But then a lot of people will sort of take advantage of that and become sort of abusive. So then I learned it's like, okay, I have to give them permission for things like that, to tell me what to do. And so, what do you think of that?
Oh, I think that, yes, I think people pleasing and codependency could be interchanged terms for sure. Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, definitely. And I love, like, people pleasing is probably a more widely used term. So I'm glad that you brought it up. And exactly, like, there have been work, like, I was an elementary school counselor for 4 or 5 years and I loved it. But I thrived on saying yes to everything and getting so much praise. And
oh my gosh, thank you so much.
And I loved my job, but I was also so burnt out by the end of it. And it was a lot. There were so many opportunities to say yes to helping in some way, and it's for the children. And then you end up feeling really burnt out. So I think it's been in a lot of different areas, it's important that we look at, okay, is this what I'm needing? What am I really needing? If I'm wanting to prioritize time with family, is saying yes to this really the answer? Even though I'm craving praise, maybe I need to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that.
But what's your praise, right? So what's your praise? Is it because the people that are drawn to you that give you these tasks are people that know that this is what you're seeking, so they give you extra tasks? Are there people that are supposed to be good in your life, or are there people that are taking advantage of you?
Like manipulation?
Like, how long do you let it go on before you figure out, hey, maybe they're not really my friend, and they're just know that if they ask me to do it, they don't have to do it. Like,
I think right now I have a real big thing with like black and white thinking. So I don't know that it's necessarily a good friend or a bad friend, right? But
because
it's
you
someone
never know
who
what they're
is
thinking.
oblivious to what they're doing. Like that, to me, that's a different category in the gray, right? They're not being, they're not trying to tear you down. They're not trying to do anything vindictive.
Right.
They see you probably as someone who's quite capable and don't realize that you're taking on more than you can because you're not setting a boundary.
And you're always available, right?
If you're,
I've read narcissist stuff, and then I read it, I'm like, am I a narcissist? Because I've asked people to do that. I've done that. Like, are you? Like, how do you know if you are or you aren't? Like, how do you know which side? Nobody ever wants to say I'm a narcissist.
Well, the thing
Most
about
narcissists
like,
don't know.
Brene Brown, for example, she studies shame language. And, like, it's like we talked about this off air, but like to say I am a narcissist, you got to be careful because it's like, what? But then again, like, I know that narcissism is an actual thing you can be diagnosed with, right?
Yeah. Yes. Narcissism is a personality quality or personality disorder. But I think, again, it makes me wonder more about that person's history and how that developed.
Right.
And then it doesn't mean, again, like, I hate the idea, too, of like, oh, if someone is abusive or a narcissist, so that means they are all across all boards. No. Unfortunately, it's a little bit trickier than that.
Killed some puppies, so he's going to be a serial killer. Do you really know he's going to be a serial killer just because he killed puppies, or is that just one of the characteristics?
I don't even know how to tackle the puppy killing question.
All I want y'all to know is if you kill a puppy,
Yeah, I have
You're a
strong
serial
feelings
killer.
about puppies, but I mean, we shouldn't jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
And I think that people who are narcissists could also be like in their own hell that they've created,
Yeah.
and that their own history has gone about, and they have unhealthy ways of interpersonal interaction that they don't understand is unhealthy.
Yeah.
But for a lot of personality disorders, those people, they really struggle with self-introspection and therefore like getting out of that stuck place.
Yeah.
They lack the tools and they lack the insight. So that's where people can get stuck.
And that's the thing that another thing I discovered was that like Mr. Rogers, for example, have you seen the movie with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
He mentions like Mr. Rogers' basic like his worldview was everyone is precious and everyone has pain.
Yes.
And if you look at everyone with those two truths,
Yes.
I feel like it's a lot harder to diagnose someone and categorize someone when you know
When
that
you have empathy.
yeah, when you know that they're precious, but they have pain. So then if they're demonstrating like addictive behaviors,
And they're
or-
precious because of their pain.
well, not necessarily. I mean,
Because of it, you understand why.
yeah. I mean, it's just they are precious, period. But but everyone also has pain. So like if they're demonstrating some sort of destructive or addictive behaviors, it's usually rooted from a place of
Yes.
pain. So then it helps you kind of like understand, okay, I don't want to give you a solution because I don't know the solution. I want to help you navigate like through your shame and like understand your heart. Like I discovered that it's like the best way to love someone is to just try to understand their heart. Period.
Is to shamelessly love them. And I love that you use the word shame. Like shame is nothing anybody ever wants to admit because it's shameful, right?
Yeah.
But if you show your shame to people, that's when you get the most love and direct feelings of, and you get to like take everything off your chest and be like, this is who I am.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
And
such
they
a
still
universal.
love you.
It's a universal emotion for sure. I think the tricky part is that there can be people in your life who, yes, have gone through pain and have an unhealthy way of being. And if that unhealthy way of being affects your life negatively and they don't respect your boundary, what do you do?
Yeah.
You cannot selflessly love
true.
them and say that I'm going to fix you, or we have to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
That's
And
hard,
and so
though.
now you have this
What if
person
it's your
in your
mom?
life. Yeah, well, this is a situation I've gone through, not with
Me
my
too.
mother, but with a
Like-
close family member, where it's like, I love you so much. I would love nothing more than for you to be a part of my children's lives.
Yeah.
I would love nothing more than for us to have a robust, healthy relationship.
How
But
do you feel
have
like you
crossed
were
that boundary
good or
too many
bad?
times,
Yeah.
and I have to now make a really hard decision, even though I love you, even though I care about
For
you,
sure.
and I would love nothing more
Where's
than
the
for
line,
things to be
though?
okay.
Where's the line?
Where's
Where's
that-
the line because you're my mom and because I need a healthy life? Like, where's the line? Like, how do you know?
Well, a mom example. If mom, I don't know what, is mom an addict? Is mom, what's...
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of gray area.
Yeah, right. So let's say mom's an alcoholic for the sake of this conversation, whether or not that's anyone's actual reality at this table or not. But let's say mom's an alcoholic and mom keeps going into like relapsing, and now you're having to drop your life and go help mom and make sure mom's okay when she's hungover, and you're having to like scramble to figure out childcare or to figure out your job because you're
Yeah.
worried about mom. This is codependency. I am overextending myself for someone because I love and care about them and I want them to change.
Yeah.
And they're
I love that.
unable to
Say that one more time. Codependency, because I'm unable.
I'm overextending. I'm
I'm
overfunctioning
overextending.
for someone, and because I'm wanting them to change. I'm wanting to fix them. I want mom to be okay. And if we keep doing that, we're going to be resentful.
Right.
Yeah.
So resentful. There's not a healthy dynamic
But you
that
can't
can be
help
found
it because
there.
you still love them.
Yeah,
but
right.
it
I love
sucks.
mom. So now we say, here's a boundary, mom. I can't do that for you anymore. I really need you to get help. Here's some resources. I'll
Yeah.
go with you.
Mhm.
Now that's mom's choice. And mom, because addiction is addiction, will probably not make that choice. Will fumble many, many times.
Yeah.
And now you have to make that hard decision of, all right, I might have to step
Tough love,
away. I
right?
might have to step away from this. I love you so much, mom, but I can't. This rips me up inside.
And I only get one in my whole life. But like, if I don't let you go, like, you're going to continue to hurt my
Yeah.
life. It's kind of, I was watching this thing about the fires in California today, and there's people that wouldn't leave their house. the fire department was there and they're like, get in here, you're gonna burn, and they're like, no,
Yeah, emotional
I'm not
attachment.
leaving my house. Or like they couldn't find their dog and they wouldn't leave, like, so they just burnt up, like.
That's such a
And that's really what happens.
That's a great example.
Yeah, like with addiction and like emotional attachment, because like addicted people, they can clearly see that their life is falling apart, but they just can't.
They can't clearly see it, though. I think that's part of it. I mean, sometimes, but I think a lot of addicted people, they truly think like, I've got my stuff under control.
True.
This person just needs to be okay with it. And why is it such a big deal?
love
There's a lot
them.
of gaslighting.
They don't have. Yeah, true. That's very true.
Addiction is, I think, a lack of control, and that can come in lots of forms. Like not only
it's the
alcohol,
point of addiction is not having control.
Yeah.
The point of it is saying, hey,
and an unaddressed
do this.
trauma. A trauma means that we have an inability, not an inability, but like our amygdala, that's our fight, flight, freeze response. That's our like panic and our anxiety. It is hyperactive because of a previous experience that taught us that I need to be hyper vigilant about something.
worried.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, again, whether it's generationally something that's been woven throughout our history or a traumatic event that happened to us, we're going to be more
Or maybe
likely.
something you didn't even realize actually affected you.
Yeah. We're going to be more likely to like have this anxious response. And if that's too painful, people cover it up.
For sure. Yeah, escape reality.
And they make jokes like me. That's what I did my whole life. Anytime I was super sad, I made a joke about it. Like, then I could laugh about it instead of cry about it. And then it wasn't embarrassing because then other people would laugh and I didn't have to cry by myself.
Yeah.
Like, you do everything you can to just cover up that pain that is boiling up into your throat. And you're like, I'll make a joke about it so I don't have to cry in front of everybody. And so they give me a hug, which makes me feel more uncomfortable. Like,
yeah,
Of
because your
course.
brain's saying we forgot the machete.
Yeah. When reality gets really hard, you want to escape it.
your brain's saying, I'm not ready for this. And
Yes.
you've never talked about this
Yes.
to me and I'm not ready to hear it. And so you're like, so one time, like, and you get through the process of when it's attacking you to getting it out a different way. And then, but it still boils back up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
if you don't
it's-
deal with it. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, it's just an understanding, I think, in this codependent conversation of like, what I do has no effect over whether that person changes. And now you
For
don't feel
sure.
as powerful.
Yeah.
Like codependency is a powerful place. You think like, I can change that person. I've got it figured out and I'm going to help them. No, it's such a place of a lack of control because you can't
Yeah.
change someone else.
No.
If a client walks into my office, I don't have a magic wand to change them. I say, we have 1 hour where we get to really dive in. And I would love to give you some ideas of things that you can practice. We're going to
But nobody's
work on
going
it
to tell
together.
you their heart.
But if like the 2 weeks until our next appointment, you don't do that and you don't practice
Yeah.
it and you're just using the session to vent, I don't have control over what you do outside
For
of here.
sure. Some parts of your process are CBT and mindfulness, emotion focused therapy, right? Can you briefly touch on a few of those things?
Sure. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's going off this idea that our thoughts affect our emotions, affect our actions, and a lot of things we can think through
Is
through
this
that
like
lens.
Pavlov's dog?
Pavlov's
Pavlov's
dog.
dog.
Pavlov's dog, yeah.
Pavlov's dog is about behavior modification.
Yeah, that's not good.
But
Not the same thing.
I mean, if we're training a dog, no, I mean, like honestly, behavior modifications techniques can work on people too. We go to work because we get a paycheck. That's a behavior that was
Exactly.
being reinforced,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
But that's a
yeah.
different topic.
No, yeah.
So CBT is about identifying unhelpful thinking styles, practicing like thought stopping. How can I come up with an alternative thought? How does this help? How does basically being an observer of my thoughts affect my feelings and the way that I behave?
Yeah.
And that what also affect the rest of your life. So for me, I had somebody that cheated on me, like actually it was a few years ago, but then this recently happened again. But still, so whenever I'm with somebody, even if they're doing nothing wrong, I constantly search for anything that they may be doing, like, because I feel like that maybe if I can figure it out before I get blindsided with it, that it'll hurt less, but it doesn't. So it's just like searching
Yeah.
for it instead of just like being able to like live happily in that relationship and appreciate it, because it's going to hurt the same no matter what.
Yeah, so CBT might help you learn how to pause and find evidence for that. I also like DBT.
But I'm always looking for evidence.
But if there is no evidence, it helps you be able to like pause and say, okay, like this isn't coming from a place of actual breaches of trust with this particular person.
But why do I want to look for it so bad?
Just what you said. If I can find the reason, then I won't be bamboozled. We don't want to be bamboozled by someone. And so we're going to constantly be looking. But if you're constantly looking and there's that, then you're wasting your whole life. Trust,
you're wasting everything.
You're not going to find. Yeah. So anyways, I recommend therapy.
Right. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
She's going to be like, can you just move in? Like, this is going to be a lot more than I can do.
But we have these different thinking traps that are all trying to like put us down and look for the negative. And unfortunately, our brain biologically is programmed to look for the negative. So again, it's like a practice of this atrophied muscle. I mean, if we think about
so rude.
If we think about caveman days where we look back, we were constantly looking for the crisis. We were constantly looking for like the bear that was chasing us. Survival. And so our brain, our limbic system, which is we could also call it like the reptilian brain, the part of our brain that's looking for risk. It's still there. Most often though, because we are humans are hardwired to have community and to have connection. Now that is coming from a risk to having connection. So if someone cheated, or if I feel outside of my group in some way, we might have that anxious response, or social anxiety is an example. If I feel ostracized in some way, this is going to give me the same emotional response because I'm programmed to look for the risk, and I no longer feel safe in a sense of community, which is how humans operate.
Self-preservation.
It is. That's great. That makes me feel...
I've always known
it. No, I've always known it was wrong, and I knew that I was doing it, and I knew why I did it. But I didn't know that I was doing it just to hurt myself.
So these are ways that we can like identify that a little bit more. DBT is another one, dialectical behavioral therapy. It's kind of an offshoot of CBT and throws in some mindfulness, which I really love.
Yeah.
And mindfulness is, I love mindfulness. For a couple of reasons. Just the act of practicing gratitude daily is a mindful exercise. I do it with my family and I love it because my stepson now will always be the one to prompt it and say, it's time for gratitudes.
That's awesome.
And it's great because again, this is part of retraining and reprogramming our brain to look for the good. In a normal day, we probably would come to our significant other or our friend and say, oh, this and this and this, these stressful things are happening. But if we already know that I'm going to share the good things in my day, your brain is now looking for the good things that are happening,
but then
even if they're little.
You're sharing the good things with them to entice them to share the good things with you.
It's a great practice.
It's a good way to be in general, right?
And we often think only I think there's a tendency that only the really great things, like I won $1 million or I got a promotion. These are the good things to celebrate. I celebrate seeing the blue sky.
Yeah.
Like a little thing.
Celebrate waking up. Like,
right? I took
a shower today.
Yeah. We have to be able to celebrate the little things and feel like this is fueling our good day, because depression and these unhelpful thinking patterns that get us into traps are always going to find the negative and say, it's all things are always going to be bad.
Keep you there. But what I want to know is, who are these little devils that keep all the depression?
I like to name them. Mine's named Dolores, and she's a real bitch.
Really? Dolores? What should my name be? I think they all look just like me, but they're like, fuck you. Like, they just hate me. Like, they want to...
Evil Lisa.
Yeah, and they just run around and their hair's all wild like Monday Lisa, and they're like,
yeah, but I think seeing it personified as someone else can help, because otherwise there's kind of this shame cycle of like... Oh, I'm being so down on myself. Why am I doing that? Oh, I feel shitty about thinking that. Or like, why am I the one like creating this turmoil?
If you understand you're doing it. So you can tell yourself, like, I know you're doing this. Lisa, little Lisa over there in the corner, know exactly what you're thinking.
But but what you're saying is that like gratitude counteracts like just focusing on the negative. Because focusing on negative, all you're doing is just stewing, and you're allowing it to fester.
I do like stew, though.
Yeah, stew is,
and tea.
Sounds really good. I have clam chowder waiting in my fridge right now. I know that. But
yes. We were just in the bathroom together, and I was like, in the stall, and she was washing her hands. I was like, hey.
I wasn't watching her pee.
She was like, I was just in the stall. I was like, hey. And she was like, hey. And I was like, so I kind of feel like peeing right now, this like relief I'm getting because I have to go really bad. It's like kind of what you do to people. Like they just go in and they just let it all go.
Over themselves.
And then when you walk out of the bathroom, you don't have to piss anymore.
Yeah.
You got it all out.
Yeah, it's a little like relief valve. I think the other thing about counseling
For
that I
your
love
hurt.
is that for some people, this might be the only healthy relationship that they have ever had.
Yeah.
Without a toilet.
That's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
Without a toilet.
Because every
Yeah.
time I see a toilet, I'm like, I know what we're going to do.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a great point because like I remember when I went through counseling for the first time, it was nice to have a safe place to share what was on my heart
Yeah.
without being told what to do in response. It was
Mhm.
like, yeah, that's interesting. Let's explore that.
Mhm.
And then what I learned is that as you explore it, when you go deeper, you get closer to the source of the issue, and then the actual solution becomes apparent to you. Like you know the full story, and you're like, oh, I should have done this, or I can
then you
do
flush
this.
it.
Yeah, then you flush it. Yeah.
Which is way more powerful than someone telling you just get over it or just do this, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal again.
Oh
And
my God,
that's-
everybody's
yeah.
dealing with something. Like, you're fine.
Yeah,
Everybody's dealing
suppression.
with it. Like, you know, okay. Like,
I love helping people. Like, just I want to have healthier relationships with the people around me. I'm realizing that I am negatively affecting these situations somehow,
Yes.
and I've got to figure it out. Like, that's such a powerful place. I know it's a scary
there's a
place,
lot
but
of
it's
negative
also like,
things happening.
oh, look, your hands are on the steering wheel. You've
Mhm.
realized it. Now we just have to give you the right GPS.
Yeah, and autonomy.
I
Yeah.
That's
love
one thing that I
that.
just also. Sorry, I keep saying that's one
I
thing
love
I
the
discovered.
hands on the wheel
But-
because you're in control.
Yeah, well, it's,
Get your hands on the wheel.
and that's the thing they say. Like, don't sacrifice your autonomy because number one,
What
you
does autonomy mean?
like in control.
Yes.
Like you,
I thought that was a biology term.
it's like well, Transformers use it. We are an autonomous life organism from the planet
Oh,
Cybertron.
that's where you got. Okay. I'm smelling what you're
Sorry,
stepping in.
We got Spider-Man references.
Yeah.
We're back.
True.
We're back.
You
Yeah.
can tell what era I grew up in. But
Aw.
yeah,
he's
so-
he's such a good person. Like, you're a great person. You're a great
Thanks.
person, and he's actually been going through a lot of stuff recently, and I've been through a lot of. There's not a person that can sit right here in front of you that hasn't been
Yeah.
through something, right?
Mhm.
Everyone is precious and everyone has pain. That's Mr.
Everybody
Rogers.
has pain, and even if it's this little and you still feel it, it's okay to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
okay to get help. When you get help, it doesn't mean you're helpless. It
No.
means you're strong, and it means that you understand there's something missing that you want to kind of connect
For
so
sure.
that you don't hurt anybody around you or yourself anymore because
It's
you
a-
don't deserve it.
It's a really brave place because being vulnerable
Really
is
brave.
something that we go to great extents to avoid
For
because
sure.
it's very painful. So to
Yeah.
say, yeah, it's time for me to look at some of this and to understand it. I mean,
Mhm.
it takes so much bravery and it is such a healthy, wonderful gift to give the people around you and to give future generations. Like to
Yeah.
give, if you're a parent, to be able to give your children, which is again, like I'm really passionate about this because generational trauma and what we're taught and what
Is
we've experienced.
constant.
Yeah, we have to be the ones to say it's going to stop with me. I'm not going to
Yeah.
perpetuate
That's
that.
so nuts. I literally have told people before, they're like, why don't you have kids? And I always tell them, I don't want them to have to recover from their childhood.
I think there is a sense of responsibility in what you say,
Mhm.
but then there's also you saying in this conversation
giving away
that
it.
I want to fix that for myself too.
Well,
Like-
and I want to knock it off. Like, and if I'm not in a position where I feel like I could prevent that, then I don't want to do it. And I've never been in a position where I felt like I could prevent that. So for me, they're like, why don't you have kids? I'm like, because I don't want them to.
Well, the good news is that you're aware.
Yes.
That's like because
That's
a
why
lot
I haven't done it.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like if you hypothetically had kids, then you are a lot more aware of like the vulnerabilities that you have, and then you can kind of guide them, coach them. You know.
But how much you love your kids and like your life, like you're a great dad. Like you love your
Me?
kids. You want to be around
Oh,
them.
thanks.
Of course you are. Like, come on, you're a good
We'll share.
person.
We'll
in
share what's going
general.
on off air. But
No, you don't have to talk about anything like that. He's just a really great dad, and like I don't think he sees it in himself, and I see that
well, thank you.
from over here.
He has good
guilt.
dads are rare and they're a beautiful, beautiful find.
The
I
ones that are-
have good dad energy off of you. I don't even need to
Thanks.
know the stories.
Well, just in a nutshell, I made some horrible
See,
choices
he doesn't
that
believe it.
that really effed up my life.
Okay.
I think that
I can tell you about mine. It's terrible.
All people have some kind of, I mean, there are very few examples that I have of like truly healthy childhoods, to be honest,
Yeah.
of like friends that I see
Exactly.
or situations. And so I know that they exist, and I'm trying to recreate that as well, and not and work
They
through my
don't, though,
own
do they?
bullshit. Yeah, no, like they exist.
Perfect childhoods exist. Like, yeah, okay. Well, your parents would lie to you
is
your
a
whole life.
black and white thought, but I think that there are healthy childhoods where the parents have an awareness, where they allow their children to be who they are,
yeah.
where the parents are not trying to overly control or parentify the child. Yeah. I think that they exist, and I think we have to strive for that. I also don't think it gets there automatically, and it's a powerful place to be a parent who can say, I fucked up and I'm sorry and I'm going to try to do better. And that is a good parent.
Yeah, that's
and that is
me.
a good dad.
See?
That is a good dad.
Thank you. What do you want the world to know about these types of issues, about everything we covered?
Yeah. These are all emotions and experiences of the human condition. And we should see it, mental health, as a part of total wellness.
Yes.
And we should, we have to assess who the safe people are to talk to and share that information
You are singing
with.
to my heart. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah. But that to keep it all to ourselves is going to eat you up inside. To find the healthy people, find the safe people,
let it out.
Be real.
Yeah.
We wouldn't, like the example I gave before too, like we wouldn't tell someone to just walk it off if they had a broken leg.
Yeah.
We wouldn't tell a diabetic person like, you don't need that insulin, just power through. We wouldn't say that to them.
It's like when you're in church and you go and you tell all your sins. Like that's what it was for, is to get it off your chest.
Yeah, they had the right idea.
Yeah, I'm not.
Except for they told everybody.
I don't come from a religious background, but I do feel like there is a healthy place for us to say, like, yeah, here's my realness, my rawness, my imperfections, and for it to be okay. And for me, that's what counseling is, and I think it's really
makes
important.
People like you more if you're real with them. If you
But that's not the goal.
But it doesn't matter. Like if you're real with them, like it's such a better connection overall in all of my experiences.
If you want to have more authentic connection to yourself and the people around you,
real,
I think that this is an important piece of it.
So, you're expanding into life coaching, right?
I am, yeah.
And
can you just live with us for like a week?
This is so
just
fun.
come
All
live with
this
me and be like,
camping.
Lisa, get up.
Yeah, well, this is where we're gonna wrap. So tell us all about Evolve Coaching, the website, your packages, and where we can find you.
Yeah, so Evolve Coaching gives, as a counselor, I can only see clients within Washington. So this now opens it up to really anyone.
Sweet.
Who can schedule an appointment, and we would be able to work via telehealth. So that's great. It also gives you more control over different packages that you want, which the more, like if you do an 8-session package, the price is reduced versus doing individual as you go. So there's different ways that we're able to work with pricing that don't involve insurance.
Okay.
And then I'll also be rolling out some different online groups and online courses and workbooks and things like that all complement
things you can
these.
just see.
Yeah, that you would be able to purchase or do at your own time from the comfort of your home and go from there. So I really love the way that life coaching can expand into those different areas or make it more accessible.
Yeah.
I love that it's called coaching instead of counseling, because it's basically the same thing, but like, I mean, for you to be able to like open those options up to people that maybe can't afford it or don't even know where to start, like that's a good way for them to get a head start on where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another avenue that can help people, and whereas there's just legally some of those opportunities I'm not able to provide as a counselor with my counselor hat, but as a life coach I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love your counselor hat.
Thank you.
Yes, it's been. We've all kind of benefited from it today.
I know. I feel like I peed, but I did.
We did.
I can't tell if it was my brain or
I hope we
my
keep
bladder,
that in.
But...
So if you want to follow Keilani, go to KEILANI_evolve on Instagram or CoachKeilani.com. And then be sure to follow us. So smash that subscribe button and follow us everywhere on all the social medias. But Keilani, this has been amazing.
I want to promote one more thing
Okay,
before
yes,
I forgot. I'm
yes.
so sorry.
I want to too. I was about to scream encore.
Okay, so I'm also going to be presenting and participating in a women's retreat that will be here in the Tri-Cities, Washington, and that's going to be May 14th. It's a Saturday, and you can go to the Instagram Empower You Women, YOU Women.
Oh, yeah.
Is where you can find that, and there'll be more information there. There's going to be
Where's it gonna
yoga,
be, though?
catered food. I believe. I believe it's in like West Pasco.
It's the
Well, more info on Empower You Women.
Yes. Thank you.
We're
Go
gonna
there. I'm not the
find
organizer.
you.
I'm just a participant, but I am an exuberant participant.
Well, thank you for joining us so much. It's been an awesome privilege to have
Thank
you.
you.
And
Thank you
follow
for
us.
having me.
Smash that subscribe button. And
Smash.
Peace out.
Smash. Peace out, Girl Scout. Fuck hard.
I was waiting for that.